This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeff Gardner.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today, we have another good neighbor on, Ariela Koldorf, with Spectrum of Light Support Services. Ariela, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, very happy to have you on here as well, especially with such high praise from Sarah over at Glowing Hearts. We love what she does, and if she likes you, then we like you. So let's get right into your business. What is Spectrum of Light Support Services?
Yeah, so essentially I am a caregiver, parent, care provider, coach, and I focus on increasing caregivers' understanding of challenging behavior and the unique needs of their loved ones. So if you have a child at home or even an older loved one who has some complex needs, challenging behaviors, or if you're a care provider like a daycare, a church, a camp, I essentially work with you and coach you along to understand some of the challenges you're facing and essentially how to put some things into place to make things a little bit safer and more successful.
Okay, so do you actually work with the children, or do you work with the people who work with the children?
So I work with the people who work with the children, and that's what makes me a little bit different because there's tons of direct support kind of services for the kiddos or for the individuals that are, that have the exceptionalities or the special needs. But I'm here to really coach the caregiver along with all my expertise, both personal and professional. I can really, empathize, sympathize, and understand what they're going through and help them understand what their loved one is going through.
I think it's great. I talk about mentorship all the time. That's what I look at, what you're talking about right now, at least a layer of it, learning from somebody else's expertise when we can empower ourselves with knowledge, especially wisdom. To me, wisdom is knowledge and experience. So if there's someone that has been where I want to go, speaking to them or connecting with them, building a deep relationship with them can totally change the trajectory of my life. So you're essentially guiding these people who are dealing with elderly people or children to make sure that they can have a better experience, have more impact on their customers, on their clientele is essentially it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, I'm here to coach, and I can, model strategies for you. And I really tailor all of my relationships with my clients to what their needs are. I'm not here to tell you how to parent. I'm not here to tell you how to, how to be with your loved one. I'm here to make suggestions. I'm here to empower you. I'm here to guide you. And I'm here to kind of sprinkle my knowledge and sprinkle my expertise and maybe have you see things in a different way, in a different lens. I like to use a lot of have you tried this? Have you thought about that? Just because, again, when we're in it, and the same for me as a parent, when I'm in it with my, with my kids and things are happening, it's really hard to step back and take that objective kind of look at what's going on and what I can do differently. So that's my role, is what can we do differently to make it better?
Yeah, I love that. I've talked about it a few times on the show. I do some counseling work on the weekend at an addictions facility. And one of the things they talk about, whether you're in AA or NA, you're going through it. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be painful to have what we call a sponsor, essentially a mentor who's been somewhere that you want to go and haven't been yet. Exactly. But on the counselor side of things, same thing. Like when we're in that emotional experience, oftentimes you're attaching your identity to it, your personality to it, like you're right in it, like you said. So to pull yourself out of that experience afterwards, reflect on it with an expert, someone who's objective, not biased, it can make a huge difference. It certainly has, to me, helping me in business, for sure. It has made me a better business person, getting into that objective perspective more often with experts in some way. Just having a coach to walk that path with you makes that challenging path, is challenging, whatever way you pick, a little less challenging, a little bit more enjoyable. So I love that you do that, and I haven't heard of that before. It's a very unique business. Is it unique? Is it common, or am I just?
No, it is. Yeah, no, it's absolutely unique. There are some very few places that offer a service like this, but they typically offer it to kind of, the people who are at the top of the waiting list and are dealing with kind of, like, the most challenging of the most challenging. I don't really care what your circumstances. I don't need a diagnosis. I don't even need your loved one to have an exceptionality. I'm just here to help people who are having a hard time with whatever it is, whether it's routines at home or meltdowns or behavior, aggression, whatever it may be. I'm here to kind of lend that perspective and to support them and coach them along. And there's an absolute gap in the system for that, for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of gaps, but there's a lot of people filling those
Many.
gaps, identifying
Yes.
those gaps, and then
Yeah.
filling them. That's what we're trying to do here. So we love talking about a certain handful of things on the show. One of them is the why. I have it
Yeah.
tattooed on my arm to remind myself
I love
to
that.
ask, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Because I just find myself doing things sometimes. It's like, why did I just do that? Or, sometimes you go through a stretch of months or years. You're doing things because your parents planned out a path for you, or societal norms expect you to go this way. All of a sudden you start becoming a little bit more self-aware and decide, this is not what I was meant to do, or this is not enjoyable for me. So why am I doing it? Peeling back those layers a little bit. So we really love to hear stories of the entrepreneurs. I find humans extremely fascinating, why they do what they do. Why did you do this?
Well, I've been in the social services field for 20 years. I graduated
Okay.
20 years ago. Yeah, I thought I was going to work. I graduated as a child and youth worker. I thought I was going to work with mental health and kids and do counseling and social services programs and all that stuff. And a few years later, I found myself supporting kiddos in an autism classroom, and I knew nothing about autism. And this is probably about 15 years ago, a little bit more, actually, 18 years ago. And so I went to work. I went to do homework and kind of really immerse myself in that population, and I just fell in love with like the world of neurodivergent. I guess neurodiversity is the right word. Um,
Did
yeah,
you
I
say
just
neurodiversity?
yeah. So neurodiversity is really, I mean, everyone's neurodiverse. All of our brains think differently, and the
Mhm.
right quote unquote term is neurodivergent individuals, which I don't really like, because really we're all there's no typical as far as I'm concerned. We all have our stuff, we all have our things.
Sure.
So I like neurodiverse better because we're all neurodiverse.
Okay. I
But
like
yeah, I
that.
just immersed myself. Thank you. I immersed myself, and I kind of became a little bit of an expert. And I've spent the past 18 years just working with that population. I've become a CPI instructor, which is the Crisis Prevention Institute, and I essentially at my full-time job, when I was at a school board, taught people how to um, de-escalate escalated behaviors and maintain safety. And so I became a little bit of, an expert in behavior in that way. And then I moved on to work in social services. And I always knew I wanted to branch out on my own. I always knew I wanted to bring my expertise to the community. The name Spectrum of Light came about 2 or 3 years ago. I didn't know in what capacity. But through my most recent job in social services, I realized that there's a gap for caregivers. Caregivers do not have that support. And I'm also a parent of a neurodiverse kiddo. And there are days where I stand there and I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to get through this day? Where we have a million meltdowns or just things are hitting the fan. And that's, a few months ago, I would say about September, October, that's when I had my aha moment of, this is what it's about. This is what Spectrum of Light is about. If I'm having these moments of, holy crap, what do I do? And I have 20 years of experience and expertise and I know what I'm doing, I can't imagine the parents who don't have my skills. How are they managing this? How are they navigating the system? How are they de-escalating their kids' behavior when they're having those holy crap moments? Because I certainly have times where I can't. So that was my aha moment, and that is why I do what I do.
I love it. I really hope people heard that. But prior to growing businesses, that being my focus, I was in fitness. I mean, fitness is the health is the number one priority in my life, and I intertwine entrepreneurship and health. They're like parallels for me, but health is it. Health is my foundation. Everything is built on top of that. If my health isn't right, then that foundation is brittle, and everything on top of that won't be as good as it could. So When
Yep.
I was a personal trainer for over 10 years, so we talked about fitness, different modalities, and then nutrition and sleep. Those were our three legs of the stool. Those three things, some type of movement, your foods should be somewhat dialed. There should be some awareness there, and then sleep, number one. And the better I got at it, the more experience I got, the better my clientele, the more I found myself needing a me for me.
Yes.
Ideally somebody better. So I'm bringing up this point because you're the expert here. There's going to be many people listening to this, and in regards to your industry, in regards to many things in life, I already know all these things. Why would I coach? It's almost like it's almost like a demotion for ourselves. I know how to play the sport. I know how to do things. So why would I need guidance? And they're missing the point. It's
Yep.
when you're in the shit,
Yes.
because all of us, no matter what we know, how much experience we have, yes, those emotional situations can become less emotional over time through exposure and more knowledge. But just to have that objective party that knows the
Yep.
answer. So once we get out of the mud or the trenches or whatever we call it, they narrow our path. They take us off the road we veered off onto, back onto that narrow path, and they can really kind of streamline our life a little bit. I call it plugging the leaky holes in your boat. No matter how good you are at this thing, in my perspective anyways, I have been made better from others, for
Absolutely.
sure.
We're
Having
all
guidance.
human. Yeah, we're all
Yeah.
human. I always say, like, there are days where I need my own parent coach,
I
right? I
bet.
mean, just like therapists need therapy, right? It is what
Yeah.
it is. Doctors need doctors. I mean, we're human. We're not perfect. You know your kid the best. Absolutely. I am not here to tell you how to parent whatsoever. I'm just here to add a different perspective. So when
Mhm.
you're in that cycle of, like, you know, I can't handle this anymore. This kid, won't go to sleep, won't do bedtime, whatever it may be. I'm here to help you just break that cycle by doing something different, right? And it may not work the first time. Again, like, there's no science to this, but I do bring a wealth of expertise and knowledge and also
Mhm.
my own personal experience as a parent. And I help you see things differently. And that's really all it is. Um, and yeah, and there is zero shame in that because we're all here. It takes a village, and I'm part of that village. And I truly
Yeah.
believe it takes a village. I
Oh,
have a
yeah.
village. Everyone's got to have a village.
I love that point. I talk about it often in our business world. We talk about self-made people all the time, and just find me somebody who's truly self-made,
Exactly.
and I'll find you a fibber, because you just can't be. The moment you are born, you have parents,
Yeah.
which means you at
Yeah.
least have one or two other people.
Yep.
And it really is a vision. The more we can tap into that and understand that our lives can be made so much better by not trying to burden everything on our own because
Yep.
we feel like we have to soldier through, or like you said, maybe shameful. None of that is true. And from my experience, the experts that I've been lucky enough to be with, listen to, not shameful. The opposite of it. You empower your life with people who know things that you don't know, or at least have that objective perspective, that different lens.
Absolutely.
I love that. That's why you did that, and I really love that you said, "In my days, I have 20 years of experience, and I need a coach right now." What would it be
Yep.
like for somebody who's never done this before? And the last thing that I'll add is me just knowing that I have a phone number of someone who I respect, who I know is knowledgeable, who has been through the shit I've been through. Sometimes I'm not even calling them up for answers. Sometimes I'm just like, I just need my bud right now that knows what I'm going through, can empathize with me. It's something that I'm interested in. Soldiers, the army, and things like that. And, they have very few people to talk to because what we've gone through is so unique. So they click together and they have their coaches within their organization. I feel like many of us can benefit from similar things.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
So I am new to what you do.
Yes.
Normally, I have a few questions within this next question, sub questions within this next
Okay.
one, but I don't know what to ask. So I'm just going to
Okay.
leave it up to you. So,
All
what are
right.
some common myths and misconceptions about what you do?
Yeah. So, you know, I think I think the big misconception is that a lot yes, a lot of services need to go directly to the individual who, has the exceptionalities or the special needs or whatever it is. And there are, as much as there isn't a lot of funding for individuals, neurodivergent individuals, there are a lot of direct support services. And the myth is that that's going to fix everything. Um,
Mhm.
and when I say fix everything, I mean behavior or needs, because I don't believe that individuals need fixing, right? I do believe that, everyone is worthy and everyone has something to contribute to society 100%. And I have been advocating that for years and years. But a lot of it does stem from the caregiver, because when, as a parent, as a caregiver, as a care provider, and I was that care provider for many years, when you're burnt out, when you don't really know where to go next, when you're kind of at your wits' end, you actually end up exasperating the issue, and you
Mhm.
actually ended up escalating behavior, and you know it just cycles. And so, people don't really realize that, yeah, we have to care for the caregiver. We have to offer them that support. It is not only about the individual, because the individual needs their support system, and they need their support system to be aware. They need their support system to be available. And whether that's mentally, emotionally, physically, they need that. So if their support system is not being supported, they're not going to get supported. So that's, again, a lot of the advocating that I do is to just make sure that we can take care of the caregiver. And I do that through not just the one-to-one coaching, but I have webinars and seminars that I offer. And I also am in the midst of putting together some support groups. So I did just start my own Facebook uh, caregiver community page, and I'm hoping to kind of start little support groups from that. Just because, like you said earlier, we all need that somebody that we can call and slime or vent to that gets it. And I'm only one person. I get it, but I'm only one person. So I'm hoping to build a little bit of a community so that we can take care of each other.
I love it. I love it. It's so
Thanks.
similar. There's I really love it. I really think it's so important. you know, we only know what we know at that moment, and we slowly identify these leaky holes or these weaknesses, and then we evolve and slowly get better as a species, as a community, et cetera, et cetera. So it seems like in the weekend work for me in the world of addiction, it was only focused on the person who was struggling directly with
Right.
addiction, and didn't focus because that was so much to handle for so many decades. It's like, let's just tackle that. We didn't even have the scope to think beyond it because that was so um, challenging
Yeah.
to deal with until we knew more things. And then we started to identify the ripple effect of
Yes.
this person's experience affecting parents, kids, family members, and realize that they're taking a major brunt of this as well. And another organization that's been on the show, wonderful work in Simcoe County's Gilda's Club, if you've heard of them before.
Yep. Absolutely.
So they talk about this all the time. I mean, he must have corrected me at least twice because while I was trying to understand it, I kept thinking the person who has cancer, that's who you're trying to talk to. And he says, no, them as well, for sure. But the family members,
Yeah.
the people that are on call all the time, taking care of this person who has this illness, this disease. And we will provide a community for them because, like you said, it takes a village. The whole village feels it in some way. And I just think it's a wonderful day and age for us to be putting out quality services to focus on the caregivers like yourself, the people that are impacted by this individual or by this group for whatever reason, because it seems like, at least from my experience, they were um, lower on the priority list.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And really, in the past, we used to do things in a very reactive way. Um, I
Yeah,
believe in
you
being
nailed it.
responsive, right? You need to be responsive, proactive.
Mhm.
Uh, I need to work with you to kind of, you know, see what you can do to prevent things from happening, not react to them when they already do. And that's part of, the idea, like Gilda's Club. And I was actually just there last week for an event, but that's what they do, right? Because they don't want the caregivers to burn out, and the caregivers have feelings and things going on for them as well as the individual that is experiencing cancer. So it's the same idea. It's the same idea here, whether it's a parent who's at their wit's end because they keep getting phone calls from school to pick up their kid and they don't know what to do and their kids, freaking out at home and there's behaviors. Or it's the parent that's staying up all night with anxiety because, tomorrow is Monday and Mondays are typically really hard days for their kids.
Mhm.
It's things that we don't think about and things that a lot of people kind of take for granted, I guess, in their everyday lives. Those are the things that I think about for other people and kind of think, okay, how can we make it better? How can we change things so that you aren't staying up all night on Sunday night worried about what tomorrow morning is going to be like? How can we change your tomorrow morning? What can we do to put in place to make it different?
Yeah. And what an impact that would have. Just that Monday morning experience. You think of somebody living that for 10 years,
Yeah,
huge amounts of, stress hormone spikes in the body, low amounts of sleep. So they're not healing. So, they're running on fumes. That's probably going to ripple into their relationship with whoever they're caring for. And it's going to ripple
absolutely.
out into their other environments, their romantic relationships, and slowly make things less than optimal. So even
Yeah,
if your services could just increase the quality of that one example, um, yeah, that could have an impact on on an entire life. It's pretty amazing.
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, let's face it, a lot of our folks that need extra support don't get the extra support because there's no funding, there's no things allocated to them. So the stress level for parents who are caring for neurodiverse kiddos, adults, whatever, is already high just from
Mhm,
that, just from knowing, okay, I've got this special needs person or this person with dementia or this person with whatever. I was speaking to somebody the other day that has a kiddo, no diagnosis of any kind, but just behavior, just
mhm.
non-compliance, won't do whatever they need to do, and it gets in the way of their relationship with their spouse because it's constant bickering. They're not on the same page. They don't see it the same way. The child behaves one way with one parent, another way with the other parent, and I'm like, oh well, there's so much to explore here, but there's so much we could do here at the same time. That's like simple little steps to take to make things a bit better. And they kind of looked at me after we chatted and I sprinkled some of my knowledge and some of my suggestions and they're like, oh, we never thought of that. Oh, wait, we never talked about it that way. I'm like, yeah, just changing the way you think about it will change the way you respond to it. So it's pretty
That
neat.
that fantastic, "Oh," it's all of a sudden they're
I
receptive
love
now.
it.
They're like, "I didn't think I was gonna learn that. This is better than I thought it was." I
Yeah,
love that. I've heard that, a
yeah,
few times before, and
yeah.
it's amazing what people can learn, especially in that setting. How many people don't reflect on what they've just gone through? They're just like, "That thing was so shitty or so chaotic or so all-consuming. I'm just thankful to be out of it. I'm not gonna go back and reflect on it or write a summary on it." But
Absolutely.
when you have somebody there to guide you through that, now you can be reflective on those experiences. Hopefully, when you get into the next experience, it's a little better each time. And over time,
Exactly.
yeah, maybe you really master that
And
situation. I love it.
and it's not easy, right? Like
No.
it's work for me at home and it's
Yeah.
constant talking with my partner and stuff and it's constantly me reminding me like, okay, step back. Step back and take a look
Mhm,
at what you've done here because it didn't go well.
mhm.
And I have days where it doesn't go well, right? Like it is
Sure.
what it is. That's life. But you have to just keep going and seeing what you can change.
I'm glad you pointed that out too, because often when we look at experts, it's like, they must be perfect at this thing. They're an expert. It's like, no, at the end of the
No.
day, we're still flawed humans, like, by
Yes,
nature, but we've gotten better at these things, and my life has gotten better from these things, and
yeah,
I can share these with you to make it better. It's not perfection,
exactly.
just better.
Exactly.
I love
Yeah.
it. So,
Thanks.
yeah, I think what you do is really great. I think it's really impactful work. I think it's important stuff. I think it's
Thank
stuff
you.
that a lot of us haven't thought of. At least from I talk to entrepreneurs all day, and most
Yeah,
things are not new to me. This was new, but this caring for caregivers idea has been coming up more and more. And I just, like I said, we don't know what we don't know. So I just
yeah.
didn't think of that. And I think it's really important stuff because life is stressful. And you're essentially easing the stress and you're empowering people with knowledge and skills, which has never hurt me. It's always made my
I
life better.
try.
Yeah.
I try. That's the goal.
So, Ariela, outside of business, what do you get up to? What do you do for fun? You got any hobbies? Do you go skydiving or things like that?
No, I don't actually. But I don't have super a lot of time. I work full time. I have this thing, the business, the kids, the dogs, the
Hmm.
things. But um, I love just hanging out with family, my kids, my partner, see my parents, my siblings, and hanging out with my good friends. We call ourselves our little moms club. We like to go out on Friday nights and have a good time. But
Hmm.
otherwise, I mean, all I need is a beach and a good book at least once a year. When I can get away, that's good. But yeah, just kind of chilling out at home, cuddling with my pups, hanging out with my kids. Sometimes hanging out with my kids together if they're getting along. That's always a bonus. And yeah, I'm pretty simple.
How many kids you got?
I got 2 kids, 2 dogs, a spouse, and that's
Bunch of family
more than
members.
what I need. And a bunch of family members. We're all a crazy family, and that's what makes us amazing.
Yeah.
We get together, it's loud, but it's a good time. And
And
yeah.
what kind of dogs?
So I have a poodle. He's my human dog. I speak to him like a human. He behaves like a human. He was my first puppy love. I was scared of dogs before we got him, and now I love dogs. And a
Hmm.
Bernedoodle, who is not the sharpest tool in the shed. He got the Bernese side instead of the poodle side. But we always say he's not super smart, but he is like he's love. He's love. He's just a fur ball of love. He follows me everywhere I go. He just wants mommy to love him and hug him and know he's there. So life
It's
is
my
good.
kind of dog right there.
Yeah,
Leads with the
yeah,
heart. It's awesome.
yeah, yeah,
So I love that all of those things sound very cozy and warm and comfortable, that type of lifestyle. I certainly do a
yeah.
fair bit of that myself, although I have less of a crew than you do. No kids at this point, hopefully sometime in the near future. But outside of the fun stuff, we really, really like to shine a light on the harder moments of life.
Hmm.
Because again, kind of alluding to what we were talking about earlier a little bit, I think so many of us have a hard time sharing those moments because they're rooted in some mistake. Often we've failed in some
Yep,
way, which comes with that some shame or embarrassment, things like
yep.
that. So we have these feelings that just don't feel good inside. So if they don't feel good inside, that must mean I'm not enough or bad in
Hmm.
some way. Why am I going to share this with people? And I think this message is being spread very effectively these days. It still needs more, but I think it's come around a long way to really encouraging people to talk about their challenging times. Why? Simply because if we flip the script on what a hard thing is, something that I did not want to do, don't want to do it, don't want to talk about it, just get me through it, put my head
Hmm.
down and get me through it like a storm, to now, often we're made better from going through these challenges. We're finding out what we're capable of, how we can impact ourselves and other people. So to look at it as from doing a very uncomfortable thing, it was for many of us was a red light, like stop, don't
Yep,
go any further. And now we're restricted by fear to making it a green light and
yep,
to go to what scares me, I must do.
yep.
So we talk about that as much as we can. It's a major philosophy of my life. Just do hard things simply because you'll get a lot. It seems like the best things in life you have to pay for with a little upfront pain, but
Of course.
long-term results. And it
Hmm.
seems like the things that are least beneficial for us, there is the upfront pleasure, that immediate pleasure, sitting on the couch all day, watching Netflix, whatever it is, and then long-term discomfort. So, is there any trials and tribulations, hard things that you've been through that maybe when you went through them, you're like, this sucks. I don't want to be
Yeah.
here. But looking back in hindsight, you would not pull that ingredient out of the soup that is you because it's made you a better person.
Yes. So there are many, but one in particular, anxiety, uh, is is the all-encompassing word. But essentially, I again had kind of an aha awakening moment a few years back. So probably 5 or 6 years ago, when I just realized that something wasn't okay. Like I was like, this is not, something's not right. It's just things aren't working for me. And I had to do a lot of soul searching, some therapy, and realized that, holy crap, my entire life I've suffered from anxiety, didn't recognize it, even though I've worked with individuals who suffer from anxiety, but until it really started affecting my life in all facets, as a mom, as a professional, as a partner, um, yeah, I didn't recognize it. And when I did go through that period of, oh my God, like the shame, the stigma, and I didn't really talk to anybody about it, didn't speak to my partner about it, nothing. Um, until I kind of, again, therapy, soul searching, and all that. And I thought, no, like it is what it is. This is me. And that's when I decided to take um, a different path. So I, went to my doctor and um, started taking medication that, has since helped me just kind of, get rid of that fog, get rid of that need to always be on and always be perfect and always have those perseverating thoughts and the what ifs. And that really allowed me to then also reflect on what I was doing professionally and what my goals were. That also allowed me to change as a parent because, again, I was parenting my kids from a place of anxiety and I saw that in them. And I think that was my big aha moment.
Mm.
My daughter, when she was small, she was like a mini me. And I thought, oh my God, I am making her into an anxious person. Like everything she was doing sounded like me, and it wasn't okay, right? It wasn't okay for a little 3 and 4-year-old to always be worried about things. And so I worked really hard on changing that and reshaping the way that um, I thought and I carried myself and I parented. And I really do feel that it's really brought me to where I am now because I've made a lot of changes in my professional life and my personal life with just the people I surround myself with. um, and I choose to surround myself with people that I know have my back, that I can trust. And thankfully, my spouse and my family always have, and that's why I love them so much. But friends wise and all that stuff, I'm really selective now with who I spend my time with. Um, because I think when you're in that space where you don't realize that you're going through hardships, you let people knock you down.
Mm.
And as soon as you kind of pick yourself up and you really want to take care of yourself, you realize, oh, these people don't really have my back. They like me because I was in this place of, you know, not vulnerability, but place where they can kind of have a bit of control. Whereas now I'm here and I'm, using my voice and I'm standing up for myself and I'm making changes that are positive. And so I don't serve a purpose for them anymore. So I feel like that whole anxiety awakening has really like profoundly changed my life for the better. And I'm really open with it and I talk to people about it. There's no shame. Just like there's no shame in really anything. Like we have to, again, uplift each other and help each other out. It's not about competition. It's about collaboration and celebration. And that's how I lead my life now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I
Thanks.
love that. I love hearing these things. And another point, unless I missed it,
Yeah,
that you may not have mentioned is now you have experience of the plus side of anxiety, which so many of us
absolutely.
have anxiety somewhere on that continuum. Some is it's very overwhelming. I certainly have my anxiety. It's there, yeah, with all the responsibility that I put on myself, and it's learning through understanding it a bit more, unpacking it. Where is this coming from? Often it's this pedestal that I put myself on to hold the burden of my team. I have to do these things to make sure I provide this environment for them. Me, this kind of stuff, and that just increases my anxiety through self-awareness. You slowly get to understand it a bit better. So you going through this experience, not only has it changed your life from your words, but you also know anxiety so much better. Whereas we think of it as this one thing,
Yeah.
and then you experience it, and now it is a completely different thing, almost like an avenue to take you to a better and stronger and more empowered place as an individual. Once looked at as bad, don't go. Now it's like,
Yes.
no, it has helped mold me into who I am, which is just an
Absolutely.
incredible thing. And I know that that was a hell of a fight. Anxiety is
It
no joke.
was. It was. It was. I was pretty deep in there for a bit. And had to kind of really look, you know, figure my way out. But it took a while. But yeah, like it was worth it because again, you can use it, as you said, as like, as this thing where yeah, you can get a lot of things done and you can use it, in the best way possible, but just being aware. So those
Mhm.
nights where I'm up kind of, you know, not being able to turn off all the things in my head that I have to do and the responsibilities I have, I now have the awareness of like, no, can't be doing this, and I have some strategies that I use to kind of put that to bed, so to speak, and to be able to move on because I spent so many years not being able to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I love it. It's a great story. I really appreciate you sharing that with
thanks.
us, especially with how many people are at different areas of that path with anxiety. Some aren't
Yeah,
even aware they have it. And I imagine to an extent, most of us, if not all of us, have experienced anxiety in some way on different levels.
of course.
But some people aren't aware of it that maybe now are. Some people are in the middle of it that have a little bit of hope. Some people are where you are and they say, yeah, I get it. I went through the same thing.
Yeah.
What's one thing you wish our listeners knew about Spectrum of Light support services in particular?
What is one thing? So I don't only, and I think I mentioned this before, I don't only provide like direct coaching services to caregivers, but I'm also here to provide knowledge on a broader spectrum. So I do offer webinars and seminars about behavior, behavior basics, communication strategies, supportive and preventative strategies to implement. And I do this with, again, small groups of people. I'm working right now on offering it in a way that is accessible. I'm looking at maybe offering it at my local library where it's free or like a minimal fee. I'm also pairing with a couple of charities so that, if and when I am able to charge money, I do give back to the community that way. I'm looking into grants just again because I don't want people to have to pay an arm and a leg to learn this information.
Mhm.
Um, and I speak about it really wherever I can, and I speak about the levels of behavior, why they happen, what they look like, how do we respond, why do we need to respond in a specific way, and just knowledge is power. So I'm trying to empower people to just be more aware of behavior because all behavior is communication. And so when your loved one behaves in a certain way, they're trying to tell you something. And
Mm.
when you don't know what they're trying to tell you and you respond in a way that's not going to work, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to go in circles. So that's really the foundation of all my coaching sessions too with people is really looking at the behavior and what it's trying to say and how we can respond differently.
That's out of all psychology and philosophy, both kind of rooted in human behavior to a good degree, certainly psychology. That's really been my wheelhouse outside of business and entrepreneurship and has never been presented to me in that way before. I really like that
Huh,
behavior is communication.
it
When
is.
somebody's behaving a certain way, they're really just trying to tell you something, even unknowingly. It may not be their intention. It may just be their emotions that are taking
Yep,
control in that moment. It may be their reactivity that's taking control. But then that's that another layer of more understanding that you're going
yep,
down a bit more. And so for me to know that when somebody's really intense in this moment for whatever reason, it's not a good day, hormones are out of balance, whatever it may be. Now, for me, understanding a little bit more that this is just a form of communication right now. I don't need to react in kind. I
yep,
can just pause for a second and I know what they're trying to say. And this is why we talk about knowledge and wisdom so much. Just from that little thing you gave me, what was that, 6 words? I probably will not forget that. I don't think I have more room on my arm for it. Maybe I'll go on this one now. But
I think a sticky note will be fine. Just a
yeah,
sticky note.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, the reason why they're on my arm is they're this wall over here before these. Yeah, it was just sticky notes. I got a
that's
little
hilarious.
obsessive,
Yeah,
but that was yeah, you put that really poignantly, and that was great. That was really good.
thanks. Yeah, but that's, it is what it is. Behavior is communication.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Don't
take that
forget
one.
that. Take it. Take it and use it. I'm glad I could sprinkle some of my knowledge.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
did. Before we get into how people can find out about you, this is the question that I leave out. And again, I talk about it, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 times on every podcast because it always seems to come up, is mentors. I was very lucky to have some pretty good mentors, one in particular at a young age, 21, 22, and she guided me in ways that more and more now I'm like, wow, you planted that seed 15, 16 years ago and it's coming to fruition now. So she really encouraged me to think about my impact. I was kind of just moving through life. She called it like a feather in the wind, like life was just throwing you around wherever it wanted to go. You didn't have any sense of direction, or you use the, canoe in a river just going with the tide rather than you planning and where are you going. So I look at the game I'm playing is really the game of life. Entrepreneurship is in there. It's a category of it, being a son, being a friend, being a business owner, whatever. They're all categories of life, but that is the main arena that I'm in. And so she encouraged me a lot to think of, reflect on what has been your impact up to today. What have you done? Many of it not super proud of, but certainly learning lessons, especially at that early age. What do you want your impact to be for today? Because you don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow. But if you are here for tomorrow, it would be prudent to think about what you want your impact to be while you're here. So we love asking people that come on the show is what impact do you want to leave? Whether you think it's for family, community, the world, are they all one the same? I would say they probably are.
Yeah.
It's your choice.
Yeah. I feel like my mission in life is to just make a small difference in people's lives. And really my passion of passions is to advocate for those who don't have a voice, or to advocate for those who are seen as less than. And so if I can have any impact, is to just, let people know that people who are quote unquote neurodivergent or not neurotypical, or, are nonverbal, can't speak, can't advocate for themselves, they are still such a huge part of our society, and they are still such a, everyone has something to offer. People typically think, oh, he can't talk, he has autism, he's like high needs, we'll just put him aside. No, everybody's got something to offer. Everyone is deserving of dignity and respect and love and a place on this planet. And so that's what I really like to kind of put out there. And again, caregivers, just because you have somebody with special needs does not mean that you as a caregiver, as a parent, as a human, don't have needs as well. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand. So yeah, just be kind to everybody. I lead my life with kindness. And I teach my kids to do the same. I think I have pretty respectful, kind, loving children. And so if my impact can say anything, is just include everybody, be kind, and just remember that everyone's got a place and a purpose.
Yeah, that's the line right there. Everybody's got a place and a purpose, no matter what they look from the outside point of view.
Yeah.
Kindness, dignity, respect, love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a mic drop right there, Ariela.
Thanks. How
can people find out about you?
Okay, so I do have a website, www.spectrumoflight.ca. Has some information about what I do, has a contact form and a blog that I started recently and to once a week. I'm on socials, so I'm on Facebook and Instagram under Spectrum of Light Support Services. And again, my Facebook group is Spectrum of Light Caregiver community. And I also have an email, spectrumoflightservices@gmail.com.
Beautiful. It was really lovely having you on the show, Ariela. I think I almost always learn something on these shows. It's one of the pleasures of having a podcast, but certainly learned some important things for me today. Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. I think what you do is great.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com, or call 705-413-3775.